Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Triumph Over Tragedy. I'm actually sitting at an airport and I'm not sure if you're like me, but I was overthinking how to introduce my next guest, and I just decided, you know what, I'm gonna sit down in front of my phone and do it right here at the airport, because I think that their story is so real and we just don't need to overthink things. I want you to help me welcome my next guest because cancer tried to steal something from them. Cancer did steal their little boy, but it didn't steal their joy, and joy was not stolen from their little boy. I really hope that you can gain from their wisdom, and I hope that you listen to their story. It's very powerful. In fact, it's so powerful that I decided that I was going to move myself out of the way. I'm not on camera. This is it right here. We turned my voice down. I'm not going to be on camera throughout the podcast if you're watching on YouTube. We're just here to hear their story, hear the power of their words, hear the power of their joy. Please help me welcome Jaime and Logan Tjossem. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thanks for having us.
Jaime, Logan, and Caden. Can you wave at the camera, Caden? No?
Can you say hi?
All right.
Just being shy.
That's great. Well, you guys have a remarkable story, and I've just been learning a very little bit about it. And I told you at the beginning I didn't want to know too much because I wanted to really learn who you guys were and things like that through your own story. And I'm just here to kind of hang out and listen and maybe ask some clarifying questions and things. But I appreciate your guys' attitude for the triumph over your tragedies and things like that. And Caden can't be here, and that's what you guys are going to talk about. But Vikings. I understand someone's a Vikings fan.
I don't know if I want to admit it.
Right? Another loss today.
Another loss, yeah.
And I'm not a football fan.
Yeah,
so
it was tough.
My loss, right?
Yeah, right. I don't know.
Win.
Yeah, maybe.
Which one?
Probably win.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It was rough.
And I grew up too close to Lambeau Field to
totally
say that I'm a Vikings fan, so I don't want to offend any of my people back home.
What did you think when Favre came over to, the other side? How did you feel about it?
Green Bay let him go.
Yeah.
Green Bay let him go.
Was that wise?
So, no.
No, okay.
But you know what?
I think it's worked out pretty well for him, though.
The state of Minnesota.
With Rodgers coming in.
For sure.
Yeah.
State of Minnesota benefited, so.
That's for sure.
And we had a couple good years.
Absolutely. I think I remember a little bit like the championship. You would know, Logan.
Yeah.
That championship game. He was hammered, wasn't he?
He was hurt. Yeah.
Yeah,
and the Saints were after him.
Yeah, that's right.
They had a bounty out on him, which that's a whole nother story. But
like they got in trouble for it, right?
Oh yeah,
Isn't it? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, and now the rules are changed all because of the Saints, because they were complaining last year, about the calls and stuff. And I'm thinking, how ironic,
Right.
It comes full circle, doesn't it?
Were some of the same players on the team and stuff? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. It does come full circle, doesn't it? I mean, when you complain and stuff like that, it's not worth it. But how do you guys want to start with your story? I mean,
I'm gonna probably let my wife start. She's got
smart
an
man.
Yeah.
Smart man.
Wise,
Smart man.
She's got an amazing memory for dates, and I think she's probably got it chronologically in that mind of hers. So
well, I think where I want to start is just with the fact that when I met you in 2006, you already had Riley and Carly.
Correct.
And so I knew going into it that I was going to have some stepdaughters.
Yeah.
And I was fine with that.
Yeah.
And main reason for that was because with my visual impairment, I didn't know if I could raise my own child from, a baby on. And that scared me. So I was like, okay, I'll have two stepdaughters. Well, Logan and I dated for about a year. He proposed to me. I had the whole wedding planned, and then I found out I was pregnant with Caden.
Oh, wow.
So I had my wedding dress ordered, and most of the plans set because that's just how I am. I get things done. Found out I was pregnant with Caden, and do you remember when his due date was?
Our wedding date.
He
You're
was
kidding.
actually due on the day we had picked for our wedding, which was October 20th at the time. Right? October 20th?
That sounds right.
Well, it turns out he came October 19th. And so we actually put all of our wedding plans on hold. And then he was born. And then we actually decided to get married on New Year's Eve. So we just did a justice of the peace. And I'll let you tell this part.
Yeah, so we had our family.
I just want to say this sounds like this is going to be a fun one.
It's humorous. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I am.
Yeah.
So we had our family, my daughters, of course, and then two of our closest friends, as witnesses, and then the cantor. I don't know what you call the person that does the ceremony, but she got to the point, and Caden's on the floor, and
2-month-old Caden.
Yeah, in his car seat. And we thought he was asleep, like most babies do at that age. And the lady says, "Is there anybody in the room that objects to Jaime and Logan getting married?" And clear as a bell.
On cue.
Caden goes, "Wah!"
You're kidding.
No, and we have it on videotape. He was silent the whole time.
The whole time.
Yeah. We both looked. We're like, hey.
I'm going to probably put my foot in my mouth here because I have someone that produces this, but can we get that clip? Is there a way of doing that?
We have it on video.
It somewhere. I have to go back and look.
And if we
That's
can get it
on our video
digitally,
camera.
we can edit it.
Yeah.
You have that on a video tape.
Yeah, I do have it.
I just think that'd be super fun.
I mean, the timing was
added into this
perfect
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was much cuter than me trying to,
Right, exactly, right. You did great.
Yep.
Yeah, that's probably how you respond to Jaime some days.
Right? Especially as I get older.
Good.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was kind of the start of, our Caden had a great sense of humor about everything. And, looking back, it was just obvious, from day one that he was supposed to be in our lives, for a purpose.
Yep.
And
we didn't fully realize it till our
Yeah.
journey came full circle, which we'll talk about. But, Logan had finally, he told me, he said, if we're going to have another child, and of course he was joking, he said, you better give me a boy. And I said, fine, I'm cool with boys. I'm cool with that. Mm-hmm. And so he turned out to be a boy. Of course, we couldn't wait. We found with the ultrasound prior to him being born that it was a boy. And we picked out his name, and his name, Caden, and then his middle name, Samuel, which is my dad's name. That turned out to have a meaning that meant God's companion. Or sent from God. It was something like that. So we really liked that. Mm-hmm. We're not overly religious, but that really rang true to us. And again, when you see how our story comes full circle, it makes his name just seem so much more worthy.
I guess.
Just and so. No, we, we're going on with our lives and raising the kids.
And I got to step back. Just the reason I was so not adamant, I guess. Of course, we have no control about it. But I had two beautiful daughters. I hadn't had a son before. Yeah. Growing up, I was with a single mom, so I never really had that father-son bond. That other kids had and that I saw, and I always wanted that. Yep. And I thought, what better way to do it than to have my own son, and experience it that way. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I was like, you got to give me a son. Yeah.
So, he was sick of doing ponytails, and, dress
pink.
up.
So much pink.
Right.
And so that was good. And so literally the week after Caden was born, 2 daughters, now a son, he said, okay, we're done. We decided we're done. Yeah. And we
done, completely done.
No questions in our mind that that's what we wanted to do. Didn't even think of remotely what could eventually happen in the future. So he got his vasectomy. Oh. And
throwing that
personal in there.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're getting really transparent, huh?
I guess.
Yeah,
I was a good nurse. I was a good nurse to him. I did.
I'm sure.
I was a good nurse.
Yes.
You were
because we thought our family was done.
Right.
You know, we did.
Yep.
You don't ever think that something eventually tragic is going to happen, especially to your child.
Right.
And
It's not supposed to. I mean,
Right.
yeah.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. And so he did that, and we were moving along in life. And not too long before Caden was diagnosed with cancer, I think him and I were talking in the kitchen one day, and we're like, life is good. Do you remember that?
I do.
And after Caden got diagnosed and then passed away, we were like, wow, we don't really want to use that phrase anymore.
Tell us about that diagnosis. How did you notice?
So, because Jamie doesn't drive with her eyes, I do a lot of the running around. And so one of my responsibilities is to pick up Caden from daycare. And so I went and picked up Caden from daycare like I normally do. And they have this injury report that they always have to give to you, at a daycare center. And they said Caden fell and hit his head.
At nap time.
At nap time on a bookcase. And we're just letting you know. No blood or anything, but we have to give you this injury report. I said, okay, not a big deal. He seemed fine. And they said he also complained a little bit about his leg. We don't know why, but he was jumping off the playground equipment and running around, and nothing seemed to bother him. Mm-hmm. And so those were kind of the two things that, stuck in my mind a little bit. But nothing out of the ordinary. I blew it off like, okay, growing pains.
Right.
Probably nothing wrong there, and he hit his head. That's pretty typical. I wasn't too worried about it. As time went on.
So was Caden really active like that?
Yeah, he was, jumping on stuff, running around. I mean, typical boy, right? Plus high energy. I have a lot of high energy and did as a kid. So he was just, he was just into a lot of things, but he knew his limits too. He didn't like getting in trouble, but he was always pushing that limit, right? So.
Well, and about a month before that, remember at your mom's place, he had fallen on the wooden stairs, and he had hit that same leg. So we were just like, your leg hurts, you fell. That's why.
Probably hit it
we
in the
kind
same
of brush
spot.
it off.
Yeah, hit the same bruise.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Not a big deal.
One of his daycare providers, Mrs. Pam, she just said, that limping just seemed really odd to me. So just watch it. Mm-hmm. And so for the next couple days, we watched it, and he was still limping around. And Logan's like, the swelling hasn't gone down. And
we were getting ready for work.
Yeah, I remember it like it was yesterday, September 21st, 2011.
And you were in the bathroom doing your hair like you normally do, and I was getting Caden ready, and I'm like, I just want to check his knee.
Yep.
And everything felt fine on the front, but when I put my hand around the backside, right on the other side of his kneecap, there was a big ball. And I'm like, oh, this is weird. This isn't normal. First thought was, I don't know if you've known anybody that's torn a bicep, but the bicep.
Do I know anybody?
Yeah, have you?
I have scars to prove it.
Really? Yeah. Well, your bicep instantly goes up and forms a ball up by the shoulder. Yep. And so I was thinking, I don't know, maybe tore something, and that's muscle, pulled a hamstring. I don't know, but it wasn't normal. And I told Jamie in the middle of her getting ready, I said, we need to get him in. This isn't right.
Yep.
Something just isn't right.
And
so it was really progressing quickly.
Right.
Yeah, and I had torn my ACL in high school. So the worst thing in my mind that I could even go to was, oh gosh, maybe he tore a ligament. Like that was honestly the worst place my mind even thought to go to. Yeah. Was, oh God, he probably tore something. So we went into OMC, and the nurse practitioner that came in checked his leg, and he's like, yeah, I feel something here, but a lot of times little kids can have fluid-filled cysts here. Hi, Kaylin. Mm-hmm. Do you want to say hi?
Knuckles? All right.
I have broken my arm.
You have, and we can talk about that later. But he said, but let's get an x-ray, because maybe just in case he broke something. So he went off to get the x-ray, and, we're sitting in the room. Caden's all happy. He was kind of excited he was at the doctor's office, right, because it's kind of cool. And the nurse practitioner comes in, and I didn't see if he had a look on his face. I don't know if you did or not.
They're not supposed to. No. You can tell, though, on their face. They're human.
Right? Yeah, he said, well, yeah, he broke his leg. there's clearly a fracture on the distal end of his femur. So, but he said there's something else. So let me put this up on the light box and let me show you. And he said, here's the fracture. And he showed us, yep, plain as day, there's the fracture. So that makes sense. And he said, but there's also this mass. Oops, and you could see kind of a cloudy mass. And he said, the radiologist is 90% sure this is a form of bone cancer.
And we had only been there probably
and
less than an hour.
Right. We were like,
and we're like, what? We came in here thinking this is a pulled hamstring at the worst.
Right.
And you're telling us this is cancer?
And he said, we're going to put Caelan's leg in a brace.
So the timeline is 2011 in September. And so he's 5 years old?
He was just only 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was just about to...
So you met in 2006.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to gauge how...
He was born in 2007.
Okay.
Yep.
And he was diagnosed just before his 4th birthday.
Got it. Okay.
So pretty young.
Yeah,
I mean, we didn't know that at the time, but the oncologist said, he's one of the youngest that we've seen with a bone cancer diagnosis. Yeah. It's very common in children, but usually not to about 7, 8, 9.
Yeah, it's called osteogenic sarcoma. So you don't usually see that until later when people are going through puberty and they're growing so quickly.
Yeah, so within a matter of the nurse practitioner telling us that the radiologist thinks this is bone cancer, he leaves the room because he's going to go call Mayo. He said, we're sending you right over to St. Mary's.
Right away.
That day.
And I remember, Logan and I looked at each other and we both just started bawling.
What is going on?
Yeah, and we started bawling and Caden is sitting there excited because he's going to get his leg in a brace.
Okay.
And we're sitting there going, he's thinking this is cool. And we're thinking, they just told us he has cancer. And literally, we drove straight to St. Mary's. They knew we were coming, escorted us right into a certain room. Within a matter of minutes, we had the orthopedics coming in because he was going to get cast. We had oncology. I mean, there was just doctor after doctor after doctor.
Bing, bing, bing.
Luckily, I have sort of a medical background. I teach anatomy and physiology, so I understood everything they were saying. And, we were just like, could this be something else? Could it be something else other than cancer? And they said, well, yeah, it could be this. It could be this. But those were a much, much smaller odds than osteogenic sarcoma. Yeah. So they wanted to rule everything out.
So at this point, did you know the survival rate?
So I don't remember when we had met with Dr. Arndt, if it was before that or after that, but they did.
It was very close.
Was it that real that day?
It was real. Oh, yeah. Yes, survival it was, and you say this because this is one of the things you clearly remember what they said.
Oh, yeah. So Dr. Arndt,
who was our oncologist.
Our oncologist, very well known.
Cancer specialist.
Yeah, specialist, great doctor. She said, if you hear anything today, we know that your mind is swimming with all this information. She said, this is a curable and treatable cancer.
And there's 80% chance he is going to be a survivor.
And I'm
20% chance.
Yeah, I'm not a betting man, but those odds seem pretty good to me. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, we can let's get through this. Mm-hmm. We can do this.
And I think from the moment they said that, I think it set the tone in a way because right there, at least I was like, I had hope. 80%. And they're like, we think we caught this early enough. They did a CT scan because the first place that bone cancer does like to go is the lungs. So lungs or other bones. So they did a CT scan. They came back and said, nothing in the lungs. We're good there. Okay, nothing that they could see, right? And then they also did a PET scan because a PET scan would show if anything was growing in the bones or other places in the body that a CT scan might not show. And they said, nope. both of those came up negative. So for what we knew, we were just dealing with this one tumor in his left leg, which gave us good odds. Because some people, they see it's already metastasized. It's already gone to the lungs.
Sure.
And then you're dealing with a totally different beast. So that day, that very first day, I mean, it went fast. And this is where living where we live was a huge benefit, because Mayo just went
We
like
could go.
this.
We could go home that night.
Yeah.
We
Sleep in
went
our own
home.
bed.
Yeah.
Drove
Not that you
15 minutes
slept.
away. Yeah, not that we slept,
no, it was
but
all phone calls.
being in the
and
comfort of your own home was,
then
was kind of nice.
the next
so.
day, they had because this was a Wednesday. That Friday, because we had one day where we didn't have anything, but that Friday they did the biopsy. They confirmed cancer. They said, you're starting chemotherapy Monday. So in a matter of 5 days, we were walking into...
Went from a daycare injury,
Yeah.
typical kid
to St.
Jumping
Being a
around,
kid.
being on the playground.
right to
St.
bone
Mary's.
cancer.
Walking into the third floor at St. Francis building for the first time, just feeling overwhelmed, like, what? Because his treatment, we were inpatient 5 days at a time.
Okay.
So we lived in the hospital with him for 5 days at a time. So Logan and his, kind of construction background was, okay, how can we set up this room so it's comfortable for us? And I mean, once we got that figured out, which, took us a couple tries, but then it became a routine. But, here's this little almost 4-year-old trusting us, not really sure what's going on. He had to have a port put in. So he had this port put in, and that went up into his neck because that's where the chemo would be administered. And I remember when he came out of surgery and he woke up, he didn't really want to move his neck because he didn't know what this thing was. So he was getting used to it too. And again, this is where he helped us, but the IV pole has a monitor, and if the battery goes dead, it beeps. And very quickly, he would be like, what did you say?
I was hoping you would remember.
Oh, shoot.
And you were going with it. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot
know.
about
What did he
this.
say?
Bob.
Well, he
named
called it Bob.
He
Yes,
named,
he named it
he named
Bob.
it Bob because
Right.
it was with him all
Bob
the
the
time.
builder.
Yeah.
And he's like, if this thing is going to be with me all the time, it's got to have a name.
Yeah. Well, what would you say?
Air in the line.
Air in the line.
Air in the line.
Yeah.
Yes, air in the line. I forgot that.
Yeah, it would start beeping, and he'd be
Oh,
like,
something you remember.
air
I
in the
didn't
line.
remember.
yeah, I don't know
Yeah,
how.
and he would
but-
just yell that out. I mean, he got so used to doing the routine as well, but it took time.
Mom, is that what
Well-
it actually is?
the beep.
Yeah. That's not what it actually is.
Yeah.
No, that's what he just called it. Yeah.
Yep.
Logan, as a dad, you want to protect your kids. I know that firsthand.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what that was like for you. And I'm sorry that you had to go through that.
No, thank you.
The thing that comes to my mind right now is you talk about, you had your son and things like that. And what did you do? What did you think? Both of those questions. What did you do and what did you think? So what did you do to make him more comfortable? What did you do for that dad hero?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
A lot.
A lot, yeah. Humor.
yeah.
We'd crack jokes, all that. We'd just try to find humor in everything. I really took my inspiration from him.
Okay.
You hear about it a lot, how parents, are supposed to teach kids, but
Yeah.
in my experience, it's just the opposite.
Yeah.
He's really the one that probably taught me, looking back, but because he always had such good energy, nothing brought him down. And we'd crack jokes and have fun.
And played a lot of
Played a lot of video games and stuff.
Non-stop video
And-
games.
And when we would get there, we would set the room up. Every room was different. So we had to figure out, okay, how mommy and daddy have work to do, so we have to set up kind of a little office area. he's going to want to play, video games. We eventually learned that we could have a fridge in our room. So we got that. And then I wanted to be as comfortable, as possible. But as the protector, it was hard, because you realize, and it took me a while, there's nothing that I can do.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
Right.
And that's tough as a dad. Coming to that realization, and then just trusting doctors and nursing staff and God, I guess, if you want to get religious, that this is how it's supposed to be.
Well, and so. you rarely left his side.
I never left.
His work allowed him to telecommute, which was a huge thing. My schedule is one day I might teach 1 hour and one day I might teach 3 hours. So he was the one to always stay with Caden. So he did have a little more of the burden when we were in the hospital.
And I was literally by his side.
He was
all the time.
They slept right next to each other. Logan did most everything. And because literally when he was going through all that, even though he took it in such stride, whatever Caden wanted, Caden got. And that's just...
And he should.
Yeah, right.
And he should.
And, he'd get chemo, and he didn't get sick too. He obviously got sick, but handled it very well. Handled the chemo very well. But he would literally be like, I'm going to throw up. He'd throw up, grab his remote control that he was playing, and start playing again and be like, can I get some food now? And just not skip a beat.
So he just kind of realized what it was and what it meant. It wasn't
never asked any questions. As a 3, 4, and 5-year-old, he never once asked us what's happening.
Yeah.
And he was always aware of when he would.
Yeah.
He knew he had cancer.
Just accepting.
Yep. And it's like he accepted it from the very beginning, and he made it easy on us.
Mm-hmm.
He made it easy on us because he was like,
never
and at that
complained.
point, remember, we're still thinking 80% survival.
Right. Yeah. Because he had energy. He was strong. Good attitude. I'm like, we got this.
You're in the game.
Yeah.
Well, and part of my strategy too was to play video games where you're attacking things, right?
Yeah,
so I'm
They
trying
did
to
a lot
put
of
this into his
attacking.
image, into his mind,
Attack.
that this is the cancer, and we're attacking the cancer. So we would play like barbarian style attacking games, where they were attacking somebody's castle, and the castle was the cancer.
Sure.
Because I wanted to put that, in his mind, so that he could kind of feed that ideology, I guess.
Yeah.
And but I would feed him, give him water. One thing he liked to say a lot is water in, pee out. That was kind of our thing, because you got to wash that chemo through all. So you're constantly drinking water and fluids.
Water.
Yeah. And so water in, pee out, Dad. Yep, water in, pee out. So getting him to take the actual fluid, to make him realize you have to do this so that you can pee.
We can get home.
Yeah,
Sure.
You really get down there to nitty gritty when you're talking about pee and poop, but it was like a daily thing,
Right.
In fact, he was being, because he was 3, we were just getting to the potty training, getting over potty training. He would
was
pee.
there.
But he hadn't quite had a bowel movement yet in the toilet. So he was still in diapers, and one of the things
that's really proper, Logan. Yeah. I couldn't resist. I wanted to hold back that comment, but this isn't censored.
You just opened up a whole can of worms. Okay. So anyway, obviously with all the meds that he's on, he has a loose poop, right? And so we're sitting there playing games, and
He was staring at the TV, playing a video game, and he didn't even look at us. He didn't skip a beat. He goes, Mom, Dad, I just pooped in my pull-up. Yeah. And we looked at, because of being on some morphine.
Sure.
That can
Sure,
be
yeah,
constipating.
exactly.
So they were giving him a laxative.
And I looked
and
at him.
we both looked at him and said,
Caden,
Caden, you're not wearing a pull-up. And he goes, oh. So we hit the call light.
So, and then, of course, that's when I'm like, we laughed. We're like,
Yeah.
Caden, you just shit the
Yeah.
bed.
Right.
Logan.
Uncensored.
Oh boy, did I open up. Yeah.
Well, right at
But-
the time, it was that, was it Shopko or Kmart? I just shipped my pants.
Right.
You know,
Remember that?
Right.
So
yes,
that
I
was
do,
kind of
yes.
right at the time. So, that's why it was kind of
Yeah.
a joke. is-
Right.
Well, the other thing that we didn't, mention was not only were we initially that we had to deal with a cancer diagnosis, but with bone cancer, the only way to get rid of that cancer is to remove it. So the other big decision we had was, what are we going to do? And what's going to happen to his leg?
What type of
Because
surgery?
really, we had two options. Amputate from the knee down, or do a procedure called rotation plasty.
Well, there was 3. They were going to do a rod to take
He
the bone
was too young.
completely out.
He
But
was
yeah,
too
we
young for
learned
that
quick
because
that-
he was still growing. He had a lot of growing
sure.
to do.
Mm-hmm.
And this surgery was going to completely remove his growth plate. So we also that was a big emotional thing for us as well, because not only was he going to have to go through this treatment, but now he's also going to have to deal with potentially having his body altered for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
And the rotation plasty being the best option it's a little unorthodox. It makes perfect sense, but basically what they would do is cut out the entire knee joint and however much of the femur and the tibia and stuff that they needed to make sure the cancer was gone. And then in that surgery, and we have pictures of this too, it's pretty interesting. Once they remove that entire part of the knee, the only thing that's attaching the upper leg to the lower leg is a vein, a major artery, and a nerve. And then they took his lower leg, turned it around, reattached it, and his foot was now on backwards, and that was going to become his new knee joint.
So the heel
And he would
became,
have a prosthesis.
and then the foot would slide into his prosthetic, and he would use his foot to move his leg.
His leg.
Yeah.
And he had this surgery in December because they had to do a certain number of chemo treatments to see that the tumor was shrinking, and it was. The chemo was working very well. And he had this surgery in December, and he woke up from that surgery. We went into the recovery room, and his body is now very much altered. His foot's on backwards, and he could immediately wiggle his toes, and he could tell we were touching his big toe, even though his big toe wasn't even in the same spot his big toe was before.
That was amazing.
And a day or two later, maybe it was that first week, I don't know when it was.
It was right after surgery when he
But-
kind of woke up. I know where you're going with this.
He was sitting in his bed, and we're still grappling with the fact that our son.
What's he going to say? Because
Yeah.
he's still kind of not really fully awake.
Yeah.
And we're just waiting for the questions like, where's my leg?
Mm-hmm.
What happened? You just don't know. He wakes up, lifts his leg in the air,
No, he didn't. He couldn't do that.
or
then.
he was moving it or something, but he looked at his foot and he's like, I like my backwards foot. And that's what he said. Instead of where's my leg or
Acceptance.
It was a little more
Again.
energetic than that.
yeah, it was
remember?
even yeah.
No,
I like
'cause
my
he was
backward.
sitting
it's
in
like-
his room. This
Yeah.
was a couple days later, and he actually had the remote control.
Oh, that's
and
right.
this was his leg, this was his foot on backwards, and he's like, "Huh, the remote control is like a little, my foot's like
So
a
he
little
set-
table for
he
my
set the remote control on his backwards foot.
And then he looked at us and he said, "Mom, Dad?" We're like, "Yeah, I like my leg on backwards, and I like my backwards foot." And
That was
he
it.
accepted it from there on. Yeah. So again, we just took his lead, and we were like, that is so cool. Who else has a backwards foot?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he just accepted it.
Kaylin, you want to tell us about your arm?
What happened to your arm?
Oh boy.
Which arm did it happen to?
My right.
And
So
what did you
should
do?
Should we give the full story? So she was begging and begging and begging her dad to take her to Silver Lake Park on 7th Street.
Yeah.
And I let him go.
And we had just like 30 minutes, 45 minutes of free time. And I'm like, Kaylin, if we're going to do this, let's go. I got some time. And so we were all excited, went to the park, and what happened?
I broke my arm.
I know.
How did you break
How
your
did you
arm?
break it?
What were you on?
You want Daddy to tell
You
me.
want me to tell
Were
it?
you on the monkey bar zip
So
line?
she was running around having fun.
I was on the monkey bar zip line, and a boy jumped from behind my back, and I fell and broke my arm.
Yep.
Always about a boy. isn't
Yep.
it?
I told her.
Boys just get in the way of
Mm-hmm.
everything.
Yes, they
Yeah.
But I started laughing.
Yeah, so she was doing that zip line, so she had to run up and grab it and go back and forth. She did it 100 times. I wasn't worried at all, and there were some other kids that were playing tag,
Okay.
and she had already kind of started going across, and a kid jumped on her back from behind
Oh, wow.
and knocked
Like
her
right on
off.
her back.
Yeah,
Ooh.
and it was a
No.
good 5 to 6 feet high.
Sure.
Well, they both land on the ground, and I'm starting to get a little angry. How do I deal with this? And I looked at Kaylin, and she started laughing. I'm like, all right, we're good. No problem. So the kids went on and did their thing. She got back on and tried to jump up and grab it again, and it hurt, and she let go and fell again. And that's when she started crying.
And then they came home, and I was downstairs, and I hear, Jaime, and I knew just the sound of his voice, and like, what happened? He's like, I think she broke her arm, and sure enough, she did. And what color cast did you get?
Pink.
Pink. All right.
Red sparkles.
But what color did we ask him for? Do you remember?
No.
Do you remember?
Brown.
They didn't have that, so we had to go with pink, didn't we?
All right.
You wanted to get poop brown, and I said no, pink.
We went with pink, and they ended up putting glitters on there
Thanks
too,
for
didn't they?
telling your
Sparkles.
story.
Yeah, thank you. When did you realize that the 80% was not in your favor anymore?
I think we had hope, honestly, right up until hospice. I think that 80% I think we had just all refused to give in. And again, Caden just had such good energy and was strong, and we really had no reason to think that what was going on inside was true, because the outward signs just weren't there at all.
Well, the reality hit
The reality
after
yeah.
the 9 months of
the
chemotherapy.
scans, the tests, everything came back just the total opposite of what was being shown by him outwardly.
So at the end of treatment, after those 9 months, so this would have been May 18th or 19th of 2012, a couple days after we left the hospital, we had a whole celebration. He likes Star Wars, so we had a cake that said Caden kicked cancer's butt or something like that, and we handed out cupcakes, and because nothing told us otherwise. We thought he was going to be in that 80%. And we had his end of treatment scans that Monday. And we weren't getting a call.
So they did the scans
On Monday.
So they did the scans, but now they're not following up with
Now we weren't hearing it, and my anxiety was building. And I remember asking Caden that Monday, I said, Caden, do you think we kicked cancer? And he said, no, I don't think so.
I think it's still in my body.
And my heart sank. I'm like, why would you say that?
Yeah, why?
And then I actually called because I couldn't take it anymore. The anxiety was just too much. I was like, someone tell me what's happening here. And I called, and a resident got on the phone, and she said, she maybe said something she wasn't supposed to, but she said, there's some spots. And I just remember my heart sank. And I'm like right now, I feel like my heart's sinking even again. And I was just like, okay. She said, so we'll be setting up an appointment with you. And I don't know if that appointment happened the next day or if it was a couple days later, but it was worse not knowing. But once we knew, okay, we have spots. For me, it was always, okay, what's the next plan? How are we going to beat this now? And that always gave me that renewed strength to keep going. Because I'm just one of these people, like, I don't like not knowing. I like knowing what the next step is, whether it's good or not. And then I can deal with it. And so they brought us in. They said, okay, now he's going to have lung surgery. So a thoracotomy.
So it moved to his lungs.
It was in his lungs. And he was just on the 3 strongest chemotherapies that they know of for that cancer. So the doctors, just said, this isn't good. This
Not
is
reacting
not
to anything.
good. And the chemo didn't take care of this. And so if there's these spots in his lungs, where else in his body is this cancer, right? And so he had the lung surgery. Again, blew through it with flying colors. No problem. The doctor came out. We got all the spots. So again, we're like, okay, moving on. And then he had some more chemo. Where did it go from there?
Wasn't it radiation after that?
Oh, yes, because then they also found it in a different bone in his body. So not only in his lungs, but also in his lower vertebral column called the sacrum.
Sure.
And the only way to hit cancer in the bones at that point is radiation. And radiation was helping. Like our doctor, Dr. Lau, who's a pediatric radiologist, I mean, she was just amazed at how well the radiation was going. And
So it was shrinking.
yeah, it was shrinking. And again, we didn't know how this was going to go. This was a whole new world for us now. We were used to chemotherapy. Well, Caden, in true Caden fashion, they said for the first radiation treatment, they said, okay, we don't know what to expect. Most people need to be put under, and he was 4. So with radiation, you can't move a millimeter. And they put you in, it's like your own little personal cocoon. You are just vacuum packed in there,
Okay.
and you
Wow.
can't move. And they're like, we don't know what to expect. So they said, we'll let you know when we're
'Cause
done.
if he
This could
moved
take
at all, that
yeah.
just throws out the image. You can't see anything.
Yep.
Okay.
This could take a half an hour. This could take an hour. So we hunkered down, and I kid you not, 10 minutes later, they
They're
came
done.
out and said, we're done.
He didn't. He
We're
didn't
like, what?
move at all.
Really?
Well, you put SpongeBob, they have a TV above, and they put on the
SpongeBob
cartoons.
does that to me too.
Yep.
I'm glued, right?
They're like, we can't believe this, but he didn't move a millimeter, and we're done. And from that point on, every radiation treatment was like that. Now, as the disease progressed, it did move to a bone in his skull, and that was giving him some pretty intense headaches. And so for that radiation, they had to make like a hockey mask, almost kind of look like Jason from Halloween, a hockey mask. So they had to cover his whole face. blow a really hot blow dryer on this thing to conform to his face, and then cut eye holes out.
I don't think I would.
That's what
They
they said.
said.
Most adults can't.
Yeah, most
deal with
adults
that.
need an anti-anxiety pill
Sure.
to
Yeah.
do
I
that.
think I need one just talking about.
And he didn't. Once again,
Yeah.
Really?
he sat there.
And the mask, he'd have to go under sometimes.
Yep, and it was bolted to the
And
table.
he would grab the mask and put it up to his own face. And one of the doctors, the anesthesiologist, is that the right one? Who gives the medicine?
Oh, well, you're switching stories
No,
now,
I know, but he gave Caden the mask because I said I have never had a kid.
No, you're switching the
Ask.
story, though. That we were talking about the radiation mask. This is the anesthesia.
No, I know, and it just made me think about the mask and another example of just Caden going with the flow.
he would go in and ask. He'd be like, "Okay, I'm going under now." They're like, "Yep. Can I have the mask and I like the strawberry flavor, please?"
Yeah,
The gas.
It was,
and he would grab
So
it
he'd
and put it
grab
on
it.
his own face.
Be ready to go.
yeah.
Well, we kind of jumped ahead a little bit too. One of my favorite stories to tell is the Mauer story.
No, Mauer didn't happen till September of when.
That was later.
Yes, that was later.
Okay, so we're
Yeah, I
getting
know this can get
Jump
all
around.
jumbled
No,
up.
Yeah.
we don't have a specific timeline
Well,
by any means
so-
to follow.
He got re-diagnosed. We knew we were dealing with a different beast. We did the lung surgery. We did the radiation. We continued to do the radiation. And yes, you're right. We did skip over the Joe Mauer race down the hall
Yeah,
story.
that was before radiation and all
Yeah,
that.
that was well before radiation.
That was after, when he was getting used to his new foot and his
Yep.
new leg.
He had a walker.
They had a walker because they hadn't made his prosthetic yet, so he was
had to
getting
heal.
He had to heal, yeah, and so he was getting used to just moving around. So they brought this cute little walker that was like, for a kid.
Pint size.
And PT came in and said, "This is going to be, for you." And he's like, "Oh, walker, all right." He gets out of bed, does his thing, gets on, and starts running around the room. And PT's like, "My job's done."
Well, no,
They
she
didn't-
grabbed
yeah.
onto his hood. She's like,
Like,
slow
slow
down,
down."
buddy. Slow down. She goes, okay, I don't really know what to do. Now I think I just need to make sure he doesn't hurt himself.
Yeah.
Because he grabbed that walker and he
took off.
went.
He knew exactly
Going
what.
for it.
Yeah. And so the twins do that caravan every year
Yes,
down here at St.
yes.
Mary's, and so it was when it was Joe Mauer,
Danny Valencia.
yeah, Danny
And
Valencia.
then some other people we don't know.
Yeah.
Sorry. Sorry, we
well,
can't
the
remember
announcer.
your
Who's
name.
who's the announcer?
Oh, at the time.
Yeah,
I don't know either.
I can't
I'm
remember
not a
right
big
now.
professional sports guy.
I want to say Casey, but that's not right.
No.
Anyway, so anyway, they did their caravan, and they said, okay, the twins' caravan is coming. Joe Mauer is going to be here. Just child life. They go around and they do these things for you. And so when they left, I'm like, all right, Caden. We watched a few twins games before, so I kind of knew. And I said, no, Mauer is going to be here. Is there something that you want to say to him or ask him? And he looked at me and he's like, do you think he'd race me down the hallway?
Yeah.
I'm like, let's ask him.
Yeah.
Right?
I love it.
Yeah. So then they show up and everybody congregates to the atrium and they do their thing, and dads are asking questions and moms and stuff too, and kids whatever they want to say, and then they're like, anybody else have any other questions? And I raised my hand and they're like, you sir. And I said, well, my son Caden here, he wants to know if Mauer would race him down the hallway.
Yeah.
And Joe said immediately, absolutely.
Nice.
And so then the cameras came, and they staged it, a start line and a finish line kind of thing. And they said, on your mark, get set, go, And so
And here's this little bald Caden.
yeah, he's bald and he's got a backwards foot.
With his walker.
Yeah. And they take off, and Joe's being a great sport about it. And then Caden realizes that Joe is getting ahead of him a little bit. So he takes his walker and he cuts him off. And then it keeps
classic.
going. And
Yeah.
then Joe tries to go around to the other side and he cuts him off again.
Yeah.
And by the time
Now we're in NASCAR.
Yeah, right.
and they get to the end of the hallway and they're buds, and Joe gives him a big hug, and we got some pretty cool pictures and
he
stuff
was,
about it. And
Definitely a class act. And then that led to the twins inviting our family to a twins game. And so I I sort of, you know,
Did they ask you to umpire?
no.
Yeah.
No, because I would be terrible. I'd be like, ball? No. I didn't see that one. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm sorry I had to.
But I picked the Twins-Yankees game. And I have to admit, I was being a little selfish
Sure.
because of Derek Jeter.
Okay.
And he's kind
I've
of
heard that
good-looking.
name.
Yeah. He's a good-looking dude, I'll admit it.
So we got to go down during batting practice right on the field. And we were waiting for Joe because they were having batting practice. And Derek Jeter literally came 12 inches from me. I didn't fully know it until after I go to Logan. I said, "Was that?" He goes, "Yep, Derek Jeter was
And
right
I knew
next
she
to
liked
you."
Derek Jeter. You know,
And-
I wasn't going to tell her that he was right behind her.
And he was talking to his agent or something.
Yeah.
That guy was standing next to me, and he saw Caden sitting in his stroller, and he asked Caden, he said, "Hey, buddy, do you want to meet Derek Jeter?" And I'm going, yes. And Caden goes, "No, I like Joe Mauer."
I'm a Twins fan, and I like Joe Mauer. That's
And
what he said.
my hopes were shattered.
Right.
Like, I could have met
Well,
Derek
maybe
Jeter.
someday.
Yes, but instead we
someday.
got to, shake hands with Joe and meet Joe, and they won that game. So that
Yeah.
was a very, very cool experience. That Mayo Clinic helped set that up with the Twins organization, which was very cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that was that September, and shortly thereafter, he was Caden was, we were in a good place at that time. When we went to that Twins game, we were at a good place. Things seemed to be seemed to be good. They really did.
At 80%.
You know, that 80%, we're like,
still-
okay, we have
Because
had
we'd
to have
never been through this
radiation
before. We
and-
just, okay, is this part of what you got to go through? Does it spread to your lungs normally? Whatever, still focused on that 80%.
And at the end of that October, he had just got his first true prosthetic, which was he picked a Spider-Man theme. Yeah, he picked a Spider-Man theme. So Mike at Prosthetic Labs, they're like the leaders in those types of prosthetics. And he had just gotten that, and he's like, "My back hurts." We're like, "Oh, you're just getting used to your prosthetic." This was right around this time, right around Halloween, because we went trick-or-treating, and, we told the doctors, he's having some back pain. And they said, "Well, let's do a scan." It's because of everything. Let's do a scan. And it was Election Day, November 5th. We went and voted.
Right along in the
Caden
wheelchair.
had his scans earlier that morning. We went and voted, and I won't say who we voted for because I don't want to, get into that. But we
It's not a
voted,
political show.
Yeah.
I know.
You can talk about it if you
No,
want.
we
No.
voted,
I'm not going to stop you. but-
and we went up to Mayo 16 East and waited. And Dr. Rodriguez, who is one of the oncologists, she didn't have to say anything. The look on her face when she walked in, we knew that this
So it's
wasn't.
fine.
Well, we didn't know where it was.
Okay.
But he was having back pain, right? So she came in, and I think she was already had tears in her eyes. I mean, they're human too.
Yeah, for
so
sure.
we knew it was bad because Logan looked at her and he said, "Not good." She goes, "Not good." And she pulled up the scan of his lungs, and it looked like fireworks had gone off. His lungs were full.
Completely full.
Not completely
Well, almost,
full.
but, I mean, you
couldn't
could-
even
you could
count.
see 'em.
You
I
couldn't
mean,
even
it's-
count the number of tumors
Yeah.
that were in his lungs. You could not. I mean, it was just. Ugh. And they said, chances are the back pain is there's probably tumors in his vertebrae. And eventually we got that confirmed. But I remember he fell asleep on the examining table. And I just remember breaking down and crying and being like, I'm never going to get to send my son to school.
Yeah.
He's never going to make it to school. And that was November 5th, Election Day. They checked us into the hospital for pain control and radiation. And to make life even more overwhelming, they said, you need to go on your Make-A-Wish trip now. And he had been granted his Make-A-Wish trip, a Disney cruise, because he wanted to swim with the dolphins. And he wanted to be on a big, big, big boat.
Big boat. I love
So,
Caden?
yes, he did. So they said, you need to go now. And we had just found out our son's disease was terminal.
Right.
I mean,
And
we knew that they finally said the words, this is terminal.
yeah.
Don't
And now they're saying go have fun.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your son's
And you know,
on
this
1,000
is going to be the
medications.
last family vacation,
Yeah.
you know, but you're supposed to go have fun then.
Yeah.
And he's in pain.
So at this point, he's
And I, you know, as the caretaker, I'm on a regiment. You know, it's
Of
like
drugs.
Tylenol, ibuprofen, this, that, and the other thing. And it was on, you know, I had a notebook
Yeah.
just trying to keep track. Okay, when did I give him this? You know, because it was, you know, like Miralax, and because he had constipation with it. And then it was just,
morphine.
yeah, it was
so
just,
then you had to counteract that with something else.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was just, I mean, he had a suitcase of drugs, you know, that he had to take, and each one had to be taken at a certain time.
Yeah.
And
So you're like,
you're not relaxed
wait,
at all.
you
know?
want us to go on a trip, and we just found out our son's life is going to come to an end. And my husband is supposed to clearly remember when to give him all these medications. So then I was like, do you think they could send a nurse with us? And literally within a matter of days, one of the nurses that we had befriended, she had switched jobs. So she was no longer a pediatric nurse in oncology in the hospital. She had switched jobs. Her supervisors approved it, and they sent her with us. And Miracles of Mitch paid for her. So we had a nurse with us. She was in charge of giving Caden all of his meds. That definitely took the burden off of Logan. I mean, so there was a little bit of relief there. But yeah, we're supposed to go on a trip, which for any family would be a trip of a lifetime.
Right.
Disney cruise of the Bahamas, 5 days, balcony suite. I mean, Disney cruises are amazing. And luckily, he did pretty well.
Yeah, he did.
He did pretty well. He was in a wheelchair at that time, so I mean, it was pretty clear. I mean, there he was.
You could tell. He
He
would.
was tired, worn
He was
out,
tired,
wasn't
worn
able
out.
to use the walker.
Right.
Yep,
Yeah.
he couldn't
Yeah, at that
fully
point, he was
enjoy
weak.
everything, but he enjoyed it as much as he could. And yeah, it was bittersweet. And we came back from that trip, and so this would have been right before Thanksgiving. And one of my coworkers, you know her, Teresa Brown, she had actually rallied people we knew where I work at RCTC, and we came home, and our whole outside of our house was decorated for Christmas, and there
lights
was
and-
an overwhelming number of gifts waiting for Caden. I mean, my mom and my sister were there. They were trying to help organize all this, and we didn't even know where to put everything. Food, gifts. I mean, it was crazy. Because, you know, one thing we haven't
I
really
was just gonna
mentioned
say that
through
too.
all this is I said that it was a benefit to be here because of Mayo, but to be in your own community going through this. Logan and I gained weight in the hospital because people were bringing us
food
and such good food, because that's a whole nother,
Yeah.
you know, that's a whole
for
nother
me it was I
set
was
of
so
needs.
busy taking care of Caden all day from the moment he got up to the moment he got this. I kind of you forget about yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then I would eat at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night.
And he still
because that was the
does.
only time I had eaten all day. And to this day, I get hungry at 10:30 at night. And as you can tell, it's starting to catch up a little bit.
Yeah, they say that eating late is not any
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, but The community just rallied, and the girls were in school at that time, so of course they were getting support as well from friends and family. But they raised money so that Caden could do every single thing he wanted to on that trip. Kiss the dolphins, swim with the dolphins. I mean, what he wanted. What do you want, Caden? Sorry, I said your name. But it was so bittersweet because it was a trip of a lifetime, but we knew it was our last with him.
Yeah.
And, so that was middle of November, and he passed away December 22nd, right before Christmas. So 1 more month.
So you put him in hospice. He's comfortable.
Luckily, he really spent what we would call 1 day with hospice.
Okay.
He was at our home.
Okay.
And he was comfortable. He, was bedridden because he was tired and whatnot because the cancer had spread to his liver. And we knew once that happened, the liver runs so much in your body. They had told us that eventually the liver would shut down and the body would start to fill with certain toxins. And, that would he'd probably just drift off to sleep.
Okay.
And that is what happened.
He was in pain, so it was pain management the whole time. So again, I'm giving him
Morphine.
Meds, constantly, one at a certain hour, and then you got to keep track of it. So I had like a notebook of 24 hours written down, and when I gave him what, and then when I could get him the next dose of morphine or whatever to help with the pain. And hospice came and told us some things that they noticed that had changed, and giving him the pain meds, I got to a point where I noticed his breathing had changed, and I thought maybe I got it under control. I finally got his pain under control because it just didn't seem like I was giving him enough, or he just wasn't getting enough comfort, and his breathing changed. And I thought, yep, okay, I think I got this figured out now. And then kind of right around then, our dog.
Wait, you jumped ahead a little too far. So Logan had given him his dose
does your mind work?
I'm the vault.
Yes, yeah.
I am the vault.
Exactly.
Yes, my mind is the vault.
Yeah,
but
it's a linear timeline.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Caden had actually said at the beginning of that week, he said, I want Grandma and Grandpa to come. I want them to come now. And we told my parents, because my parents live 5.5 hours away, we said, you need to come.
And Grandma Judy and
Logan's
Aunt
mom.
Nikki
and my aunt and
Uncle
Logan's
Sean.
brother. And Caden, once again, it's like he knew. He didn't tell us that, but it's like he knew. And everybody came and spent time with him and whatnot. And that, I think it was a Thursday night, we went to bed. Logan and gave him his meds. Logan had been sleeping with him because he, obviously wanted to be close. But there wasn't enough room for all of us. And so I was in our bedroom and I had the alarm set. 4 o'clock, we had to get up to give him some meds. So I had the alarm set. And I went off, and I went into the bedroom, and we turned on the light, and he was sleeping, and that's when you noticed that his breathing had totally changed. The night before, it was a sort of a raspy, crackly breathing, and that morning it was just like that. And I didn't think much of it. I'm just thinking, oh, okay. And Logan gave him his meds. And this never happens. We have a dog, TJ. And TJ all of a sudden was barking at Logan. He had to go out at 4 a.m.
He never does that.
This dog never does this. So Logan took him out. I went back into our bedroom. And I was laying there, and just out of the blue, I just started bawling. And I'm like, why am I in here? I need to go be with my son. And so I went in the bedroom, and it was dark, and I can't see in the dark at all. So I was holding his hand, and just the breathing like that, right? And I was holding his hand. That night before, I
don't know where you're going the night before.
we had given him permission.
Oh.
Sure.
We told him, we'll be okay. Whenever it's time, it's time. So Logan went out the next morning, or 4 a.m., with the dog. And I was sitting with Caden, just holding his hand. And I was talking to him again. And I said, just reiterated to him, Mommy and Daddy are okay. When you need to go, you need to go. And within a matter of, seconds, I felt 3 squeezes of my hand. He squeezed my hand. And then everything went silent. And he stopped breathing. And I, put my head up by his chest, and that was it. Like, it was so peaceful. And Logan came in, and I said, Logan, he's gone. And of course, Logan was kind of upset. Why? Why did he go without me? And, the way we processed it, and I truly do believe this, was Caden wanted to be with Dad and TJ. So he left. He said, goodbye, Mom. And he left. And it was just final. It was done. And it was so peaceful. He didn't struggle. He just went. And I guess I wouldn't have asked for anything more than that.
Yeah.
But, part of me feels guilty that I was the only one that was with him.
Sure.
Because he and Logan had such a strong bond. But I've heard that people go on their own terms. And I don't know if he could have gone
handled it
with Logan in the room, and I think he knew that. And I think he just wanted, he said, I can just hear him, I'm going out with Dad and TJ, Mom. Mm-hmm. And he left.
Time for him to run.
Yep.
And before we went to bed that night, or I remember saying, Angel of Death, stay away from my son.
Sure.
That protector thing right up until the end.
Yeah.
You're not going to get him.
Yeah.
I'm going to take care of him.
Yeah.
And he'll be fine.
Yeah.
And so he passed away on the 22nd. And that next morning at 10 a.m., we had to go to the funeral home, plan his whole funeral, bring him his clothes that he was going to wear. I wrote the obituary. You're able to do some crazy things when you're just running on adrenaline. I wrote his obituary and had the whole funeral planned. And we had the funeral 2 days after Christmas. And I think, when a child or a family member passes away, you want a sign. You want something to give you some type of, comfort.
Sure.
That they made it. And it was crazy. You should speak to this because you were out there. I didn't see it, but my girlfriend had come up because she had come for the funeral and she stayed overnight at her house. And her and Logan were out in the kitchen. I was still laying in bed, and all of a sudden I heard him go, "Oh my gosh!" And I heard her kind of run into the bedroom. She's like, "You have got to see this," and she took a picture of it. And we actually have tattoos of it now. But that morning, the sky was the sun
this was the morning of his funeral, clouds literally in the shape of angel wings, and a little rainbow sitting on one of the angel wings. And I've never questioned it. I don't think you've ever questioned it.
I was asking for a sign that morning. I was in my head, I was thinking, we're burying my son today. And, that's kind of when it hit. Then I knew, that this is fatal, obviously.
We got our sign.
And I asked him for a sign. I said, give me a sign that you're okay. Yeah. And I was looking down. I was thinking maybe there would be a, white-tailed deer or something that would go across the backyard. That's kind of what I was hoping for. And his voice just came to me in my head. You idiot.
Oh, yeah, look up.
Look up.
That's right. That's right.
Because I was looking, we got to walk out to the back. So I was looking down at the, the yard this way looking for a deer. And this voice, look up, you idiot. So I look up, and then there was this, this cloud that looked like angel's wings and the sun and the rainbow. And so we felt like that was his sign to us saying, you're good. Yeah. I'm good. You're good. Yeah.
And between then and now, he's given us many signs, and we just take them for what they are. Yeah. Can't prove it, can't disprove it, but to us it makes sense, and it gives us, and you probably have, maybe experienced it. Yes. So it's just,
Yeah. Well, this is about triumph, and that's the tragedy piece.
Yeah.
You live productive lives, and you have a beautiful young lady sitting there.
Yes, we do.
Came after Caden.
Yep.
And I think that's really what we want to touch on here too is, but before we do that, obviously you're completely exhausted emotionally at this point. You went through a marathon of all marathons that no one could ever prepare for. And how do you work together?
Well, I think we always joke.
Statistically, I knew this back in my time of this, and I don't remember what it was, but statistically, you two sitting in the same room right now is pretty rare.
Yeah. Well, I remember in the hospital,
I love that.
Yeah, they said to us, actually, I don't know who it was, social worker or somebody. I remember them saying early on that this is going to be a challenge on your marriage, and you need to be aware of it. And they really put it in, I don't like how black and white it is, but I've seen it over and over and over. And they said there's two types of couples that go through this. Ones that stay together and ones that don't. And you need to decide early on.
It either brings you closer together.
Yeah, it either brings you closer together
farther apart.
or becomes a wedge, and makes you guys go apart. And honestly, I heard it, but I didn't know, how it was going to be.
Right.
I mean,
our marriage was solid going into all of this, so we didn't have any, thing that was already potentially working against us.
Yeah.
But, we joke now that even though at the time we'd only been married, 5 years, that we'd spent so much time together. Like, most couples don't spend 24/7 together as long as we did. I'm like, we should get double credit for the number of years.
It's not 5 years. It's at least 8 or 9.
Exactly.
Because we did work as a team because he was focused on Caden's care. He was really the caregiver. I was the keep it all in order, organize, remember all the important information type of thing. And of course, I was there for support too, but Logan helped with the meds. Logan helped with, I couldn't be by the bedside and rearrange all of Caden's tubes that were coming from him. So we kind of had our role, and it worked for us.
Well, with your background, your anatomy and physiology background, she knew what they were talking about. It was always over my head. So, they would come in, say this, that, and the other thing, and then they would leave, and I'd be like, all right, dumb it down for me. What does that mean?
Yep.
And then she would explain it. And so that was really helpful too.
But,
knowing what
and I
was going
think
on.
because we have different personalities, like if he was having a rough day, I could help him through it. I don't know if I had many rough days.
Yeah, I mean, you were probably,
I
was
don't
probably
know
more
where I
emotional
kind
than
of
you.
have a strength I don't understand. I honestly don't. Kind of annoys me sometimes. But because, like I said, I can rationalize it, I can process it, and I can move on. Is the loss of Caden always just under the surface for me? Yeah, it definitely is. But I think we just helped each other out the way we each needed. And it just worked.
And
I
even in
guess.
our grieving, I think that worked too. I mean, that was the biggest thing I would say to people is everybody grieves differently. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And just let each person grieve the way they need to grieve.
Yeah. And not to mention, you cannot discount the fact of having the strong support of family and friends. I mean, that is key. And our friends know that they're going to hear us talk about Caden. They can talk about Caden because most of our friends have children who would be Caden's classmates. So we're watching their kids grow and, just thinking, oh, Caden would be doing this with them, or I wonder if Caden would now have a crush on her, but it doesn't hurt as bad to think about that. Of course, the first year is always tough. We are 7 years, going on 7 years now in December, but having friends and family who they don't let his memory die either. They know that's important to us. And so I think that definitely helps.
And I think I always explain it, people almost ask forgiveness when they mention Caden, or have a memory. They hesitate to even say something to me. And I said, I appreciate that so much. Yeah. I think about Caden every day. And by you saying that, you're also thinking of him, you're honoring him by bringing me your memory. Yeah. And so I'm very thankful and appreciative of that.
Well, and, as a couple too, so we just had buried our son. And very quickly we decided together we want to have another child.
Yeah.
I have my stepdaughters, Riley and Carly, but I had lost my son. And most people who know me would have maybe thought that I wouldn't have had another child. Because I'm not going to lie, when I was, prior to having Caden, I was a little selfish. I'd rather watch my show or do something else than, have to worry about putting the kid in the tub or putting him in bed. So I was a little selfish. And he definitely changed me. He made me want to be a mom. And so a month after he passed away, Logan said, do you want another child? And I said, I think I do. And I was 37 years old at the time, so I knew the clock was ticking. So poor husband here had to have a reversal. And that maybe is a whole nother podcast. But
I think that might be, yeah.
Clearly it worked because you've already seen Kaylin.
Not really.
Yes, it worked.
I mean, I had swimmers, but you
had
3 miscarriages before that.
Yeah, the reversal was a success, and we started trying as soon as we could. Got pregnant literally on the first try. We're like, okay, this is good. But I had a miscarriage at about 7 weeks.
Mama.
And I wasn't going to let that deter me. Like, I got time. I got time. And so then you have to wait another couple months. That was probably the hardest, just waiting. Because I'm like, I'm ready. Let's go. I'm ready. I thought I was ready. We got pregnant again. And another 9 weeks, had another miscarriage. And again, I said, I'm not done. We're getting pregnant. There's nothing wrong with me physiologically. We're going to keep going. And, you know, some people will be like, wow, how can you go through this? But I just had this mindset that I can handle it. And this is what I want. And so the third time, got pregnant. And this was kind of gave you the chills a little bit, but they did the calculation, and the nurse practitioner was on her little calculator wheel. She's like, looks like the due date's October 19th. Caden's birthday. Wow. Like, I was excited. I'm like, maybe there's another little boy coming. Well, about roughly 8-9 weeks later, started having the signs of miscarriage, and I went in. They did an ultrasound, and on the first 2, we had seen a fetus and a heartbeat. On this one, it's called a blighted ovum. There was a sac, no baby. Due date, Caden's birthday. And I was just like, wow, what is that? Like, what was that supposed to mean? So, had that miscarriage. And the 4th time was the charm, because this one finally decided that it was time. And so she was born a year and a half later. A year and a half we had to wait for her. But she was worth it, right? Yes. And she looks a lot like her brother.
Awesome.
And, oh yeah, she looks very much a lot like her brother. As a girl, maybe a little more dramatic. But she is...
Who, me, she says?
Definitely, you know, has given us, you know, something good to continue to focus on. And distracts us a lot, which is good. Brings us joy that maybe I otherwise wouldn't feel, having lost my only biological child. But yeah. And, you know, if I wasn't so old when I had her, maybe we would have thought about having another one, but we do want to retire one day. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, powerful story.
Yeah.
Powerful story.
Well, because it's part of the Triumph segment too, one thing, you know, we touched on, obviously, other than moving forward and trying to have a child and blessed, but while we were in the hospital, being surrounded by mostly friends and strangers. I mean, we befriended total strangers that just, I mean, the love that just outpoured was amazing. But by bringing us food, we didn't have to worry about traveling, you know, because we lived in town, and we didn't have to worry about hotels, you know, because there was a number of families during the 15 months that we were in the hospital that, you know, we would just talk to, and they'd be like, you know, my husband is at home with the kids. I've got to stay here. You know, we have to drive back and forth, even, you know, from Winona, for example. But we realized we're pretty much the only ones that are right here in Rochester and have
a financial burden
right
as well.
And so you don't think about that piece of it, right? Basically, just the bare necessities, you know, the food, the gas, the lodging. And so one thing that we decided almost immediately is that we wanted other people to have that same comfort that we did, and not take that for granted. So we started a Caden's Running Hugs Memorial Fund. And we had a fundraiser. Is that Hadley Creek?
Nope, here in town at...
it's Willow Creek.
Willow Creek,
Golf
yes.
course.
And all the money was set up under Brighter Tomorrows, which is a local nonprofit that supports families with
we
cancer.
raised over $25,000 just in one night in his honor. And we did that so that and specifically said we want this money to go for food, gas, and lodging, because that's what we had. That's the support that we had. You know, it's obviously not as much as we had, but it'll help. You know, because you're in that moment of taking care of your kid nonstop. You forget about those things, and you have that realization: oh, crap! Now I got to take care of myself. I need to eat. If I don't keep up my strength, I can't be there for my kid. You know, if I don't get good sleep, you know, all those things. So it was one more way to maybe help out other people.
And I think that gave us a sense of being proud as well. Just
another way to honor
Caden,
Yeah.
because we knew we were kind of paying it forward.
Yeah.
But of course, we wouldn't have been able to do that without the generosity of everybody who came to that fundraiser and helped. And that money is still helping to support families that do come to Mayo Clinic. It's getting down there, and you know, we're thinking about having another one, but having a toddler and such, there's just a lot of things that are just still kind of hectic in life, and so just got to think about when the best time for that will be.
Yeah,
so
awesome. Well, guys, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for pouring out your heart to many, many people that will benefit from this and your story. And I'm speechless. I don't even think I want to be on camera on this podcast. or
Whatever.
my voice or anything. I just think you guys really did a phenomenal job today, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I know a little bit about your story too, obviously from the Browns, and I give that back to you. I know our stories are a little bit different, but a loss is a loss. And you went through some other things too on top of that you shared with us, and I appreciate you and the things that you've done. It's not easy. Just moving on.
Most good things are not easy,
right?
but worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks.